Good morning, everybody. This is Robert Newland. Thank you for being here today. We're going to give everybody a few minutes before we begin the session. Thank you very much. Good morning again. This is Robert Newland. We're going to give everybody one more minute before we begin. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everybody. Let's begin today's session, and congratulations for being here. This is a really, really amazing session that we're having today, Reignite. Your talent with powerful volunteerism and giving strategies. This is part of the Decoding the Human podcast series that I've been putting together this year. I hope you enjoy. We have three great panelists today: Linda Landman Gonzalez from the Orlando Magic Organization, John Gill from Quest Inc., and Mark Brewer from the Central Florida Foundation. And we're going to introduce them in a little bit. First, I want to go through some basic housekeeping items. So let me share those with you. Number one, we're recording the webinar, so we'll be sharing it later on. If you want to distribute it to other people, feel free. We think that there's tremendous value in events like this. Type in your questions. If you can, just shoot me an email, and I'll review them on my phone and be able to address a question to the participants so that we can take care of it. And then visit us at Newland Associates /about us /news events for more information. I do want to, I do have to do my 1 minute commercial about the firm. We at Newland Associates help organizations decode the human to achieve business results through our expertise in talent acquisition, talent management, and HR advisory. We're very proud to be co-owner shareholders of Career Partners International, a global organization, one of the world leaders in executive coaching, leader development, and career transition. And we're also very proud to be a certified partner for the Predictive Index, a wonderful talent management tool for assessments, workforce analytics, and talent optimization. If you want to know a little bit more about the firm, I'm going to give you a moment. If you take your phone out and put the camera on, and you point the camera to where it says "Scan Me," go ahead, take your phones. I got you on camera. I can see all of you. Okay, now just point it. You don't have to click, and when you do that, it's going to take you to a page where you can get a link to our website, to our Twitter, to our Facebook, our LinkedIn, and our YouTube. So I appreciate you doing that, and now let's meet today's speakers. Let me begin with Linda Landman. She's the VP Social Responsibility for the Orlando Magic Organization and the president of the Orlando Magic Youth Foundation. Linda, thank you for being here. Can you please tell us a little bit about your organization and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and it's an honor and pleasure to be here. The Orlando Magic is a franchise of the NBA, and we have been in Orlando as a franchise since 1989. So we are into our 30-some-odd years here. We are committed to our community, and our mission statement, actually, is to be world champions on and off the court. So we have an entire team whose main job is to ensure that we are connected to our community and that we understand what our community's needs are. So the Orlando Magic has been to the playoffs many times, and we've had some extraordinary records, and it's just an honor and a pleasure to be part of an organization that uses community as one of its 4 pillars of business.
Thank you, Linda. And if you don't know Linda, it's hard to think about community and giving and not see Linda's name somewhere in there pretty much most of the time. She makes a tremendous contribution to our community, and I thank you for that. Next is John Gill. He's the president and CEO of Quest Inc. And if you want to think about an organization that makes a tremendous contribution to this community, I can't think of very many as amazing as John. So John, welcome, and why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about Quest Inc.
Oh, yes. Robert, thank you very much. First off, thank you for thinking of me and thinking of Quest. We are excited to be part of this, and it's a very important topic. Quest has been in the Central Florida community since 1962. The current organization is the result of a merger that happened between 2 of our forerunner organizations, the Central Florida Sheltered Workshop and Life Concepts, which is our legal name. We have evolved into working with about 1,000 individuals on a daily basis. We've got about 700 employees in Orlando and in Tampa. We're headquartered here, and we provide education, training, and residential support. But we take it a step further in that we also have infused our organization with entrepreneurial activism. So we're trying to give people opportunities while also funding our organization. And so it's an exciting time to be at Quest, and it's exciting to be part of the Central Florida philanthropy community, and I'm excited to be here, so thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And then there's Mark Brewer, the president and CEO of the Central Florida Foundation, or as I call it, the mothership of philanthropy. And it's also hard for this community to have an initiative where Mark is not somewhere back there backstage helping groups work together for impact. So Mark, although I kind of stole your thunder, could you please tell us a little bit about the foundation and yourself and what you guys do there?
All right, Robert, thank you. And good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here. The Central Florida Foundation is the region's community foundation. And in reality, what we are is like an investment bank for the nonprofit sector. Our primary role is to bring capital to innovation and creativity, and to bring innovation and creativity to capital. We hold hundreds of charitable funds established by individuals, families, businesses, and collaborations. And those charitable funds are placed here so that we can assist the investors with identifying the right kinds of outcomes for them, and to find ways to leverage and blend that capital together to go after complex social problems and to solve social issues where the rest of the community is collaborating. So not only do we have funds at the foundation, but we facilitate funding for other companies and foundations. And then we also work in collaboration with all of the other funders and foundations across the region, mostly around data. So the ability to collect the right kind of data to be able to measure things that are important. This is all at the hub of philanthropy, which is giving, but it's giving with strategy, and it requires an understanding of what it takes to get things done.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And now let's do a quick review of what we're going to be talking about today, which is how organizations can use volunteering and giving as a talent strategy. How does it enhance employee engagement attracting top talent. And as we have the conversation, I'm going to be sprinkling some data for the audience, just as an FYI, and part of it is some of the discussion today. And I want to begin with, this concept of engagement, which is often defined as the difference between, the doing the job and the discretionary effort that you could do if you're truly engaged and invested in the job. And here's a Gallup study. Many of you may have seen this. And this is why we want to drive engagement. Organizations or units on the top quartile of employee engagement had 22% higher profitability, 25% had 65% lower turnover. That is huge. 20% lower shrinkage or theft. Stakeholder relations, look at that, 10% higher customer ratings in terms of performance, 21% higher productivity, and 37% lower absenteeism. So just by lowering turnover and absenteeism, that is just incredible. And employee safety, 48% fewer employee safety incidents. That is also tremendous. So that is why we want to drive engagement and why we want to use volunteering for it. But then here is, and Mark, I want to go to you. You shared this with me, which was, very concerning, and it's studied from the census in terms of the civic culture in Florida. Why don't you run us through it and give us your take on it, the bad, the ugly, but also how is the glass maybe half full, not half empty?
Yeah, Robert, I think you're right. I think the glass is half full, even though these numbers are troubling. So Florida ranks consistently at the 49th, 50th, or 51st position in things like volunteering, social engagement, how many people get together to solve community problems, who gives to charity. All of this seems troubling, but you have to understand that these are measures of something called social capital. And that Gallup study that you showed just before this slide is linked to this in that it takes a progressive and a continuing work around bringing people together in engagement. And this is something the nonprofit sector really is charged with. It's part of the DNA that keeps the nonprofit sector together. Many nonprofits work in their mission space without thinking to work in the engagement space. You have to get people involved in things before they will actually be focused and interested in a mission. If they only get interested in a single mission, that becomes a transaction and they might ignore everything else. So what these numbers really reflect are Florida's youth. And by youth, I mean, not only are we a young community, 68% of our population here is under 44, but Florida, with 1,500 people a week moving into Central Florida, is a continual process of new people connecting to new things and looking for engagement. And so when you measure us like you measure the rest of the country, we always end up at the bottom, but this is getting better, slowly but surely. And it is really the duty of all of us in the nonprofit sector to find ways to make that work better.
I do find interesting how even, look at both volunteering and giving, not just the national average, but those that are most engaged, the difference is staggering. I mean, you go from national average 50 to most engaged states 64.5. That is huge. It's not a couple percentage points. It's dramatic. I wonder what impact that has in its community, and then what it has in organizations within that community as we look at employers.
Well, Robert, I would add quickly that there is a clear correlation between volunteering and giving. And in fact, for the last 50 years, we've been doing studies that tie together that if you volunteer when you're young, if you connect to the community when you're young, then when you grow up, you will tend to be philanthropic. If you don't volunteer when you're young, when you grow up, however wealthy you are, you're not likely to give to nonprofits and to charity.
Yeah, and I want to go to Linda. Linda, I would argue that you are not the norm. The Orlando Magic organization is not the norm when it comes to this. You guys are always above and beyond. And how do you guys do that? How do you manage, how do you focus on that? How does it align with the organization? I promised to make that point a couple of times. How do you work your magic?
Well, to begin with, I think what I said before about having this part of your business strategy, having it as a core value, as in our case, and then having a philosophy that the community and you are tied on its health and on its wealth and everything, that you are part of a community. We really believe that we're only as good as the whole. And so what we do is we invest in solutions to what are perceived problems or are perceived or real crisis in our community. So I love what you just said about the relationship and volunteerism and investment. There is also, Mark, when you brought up that if you aren't involved as a young person in community, you probably won't as you grow. You know, that's true of everything. In basketball, if you have played basketball from the ages of 10 to about 16, you will be a basketball fan for the rest of your life. So we do a lot of emphasis on children and basketball. But we also believe that our staff has not only the desire to volunteer, but wants to be at the table. So at the Magic, we have over about 180 employees, but we sit on 55 community boards. And we invest over $2 to $3 million a year, but it all ties in. It's all part of a relationship of being at the table, being part of the organization, investing our treasure, but investing volunteer hours. And our employees resonate how important that is. They're always asking for opportunities to do things or being involved. It's not a hard sell here. It's part of who we are as an organization, and our employees thrive on it.
And it may be part of, you know, the value of you probably have an increasingly younger labor force, and I want to sprinkle some additional information here. These are 7 benefits of employee volunteering. This is from Sage People. When you get your employees to volunteer, you get improved retention, this pride in where they work, and increase employer brand awareness, increase employee empowerment, more connected teams. That is a tremendous value of volunteering. Sometimes we're in silos in organizations, and volunteering allows us to get interconnected. The ability to uncover future leaders, it's certainly a great benefit of volunteering, and happier, healthier staff is great. But then I take you to another nugget, which I found extremely compelling, which is 75% of millennials say they would take a pay cut to work for a responsible company versus 55%. So those millennials in the audience that work for my organization, remember that when you're asking for salary increase. We're just going to volunteer more. No, I'm kidding. But what I want to do, please go ahead.
Can I just answer that quickly? That is so true. I'll just give you 3 facts that are around those bullets there. Our president of business started as an intern with us 24 years ago. He's now the president of business.
Wow.
The 80% of our staff are millennials, or even younger. And then the most important thing I think here is just how committed we are to their health and their happiness, and it all ties in with their giving back, not only to the community, but to themselves. And I'll just ask one more piece here. We were the first MBA team of the 30 MBA teams to have an innovation lab, and that came out of our employees feeling empowered to go beyond. Yep. And now almost all the teams have innovation, but it all comes from empowerment, connected teams, and feeling that they're part of something bigger than just the organization they work for.
Thank you. And now let's go to the receiving end of this, and let's go to John. John, you have an organization that receives volunteers.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that, and how does that play out in terms of how it benefits you, but also how you think that it benefits the volunteers that you've seen come through your organization?
Well, at Quest, we work with individuals with developmental disabilities, and all ages, all stages. So our youngest client is 12 months old in our autism behavioral center, and our oldest is in their early 80s and has lived with us for 30 or 40 years. And so people say, well, how do you build awareness? And historically, our response has been the people that need us find us. The general population isn't aware so much. But because of reductions in funding and all the financial challenges supporting this population, we have made it a strategic issue that we need to build awareness. And volunteerism is great because invariably what happens is we'll have a group of volunteers show up, or we'll have a group of volunteers show up and they might bring a spouse or their family members, and they're like, we didn't even know that this existed. We didn't even know about these people because we're not personally affected. But it spurs maybe that plus one, if you will, to go to their organization and want to volunteer. And so for us, it does a couple of things. It spreads awareness about a population that is in the shadows effectively, and it brings that to light. It helps us. One of the things that Mark had touched on earlier, which is right on for us, we know that if we get someone here to volunteer, that we are very good at converting them into a donor, because we are, and it's not complete, but we're becoming a storytelling organization. So we're in the midst of that. And we can pepper these stories throughout the volunteer experience, and then it creates a link. And so, and then the other thing that we are focused on too is, and it's another thing that Mark touched on that we find to be true, is really targeting younger people. So we're looking at the development of I call it the youngsters board, but it'll be a board of probably people that are under 35 to get them going, to get them plugged in and to see what we do and see how they help. And so our pitch is always about time, talent, and treasure. And if we can get their time, then we can usually get them to provide talent, because we need expertise, especially as we change a lot of things, and treasure, which helps us as well. So that's a benefit to us. The benefit to the organizations that come and help us is multifold. It becomes a team building experience in a lot of cases. And because of that team building, there's a group of people learning something or experiencing something at the same time, and that creates that bond inside of their team. And they can see an immediate impact. So whether they're coming to do arts and crafts projects with some of our clients, or painting murals in our school, or doing painting of some of our facilities and locations, or adopting a house during the holidays, because it's a team event in a sense, that halo continues when they go back to their office or their place of employment, whatever that location might be. And so that organization benefits because they get to have their group doing something together that's not work, but it's helping accomplish something, and the organization is still accomplishing something. And then we get the benefit of we're introducing our clients and our mission to other people. And we just see it being a cycle, because invariably they come back and ask, is there something else we can do? Or we'd like to do this, or we heard about your camp and we'd like to take our team out there. And it just becomes this symbiotic kind of a situation between us and between that organization.
And I think that, just to be clear to the audience, from personal experience, and I'm sure many in the audience probably feel the same way, this is not really a bait and switch where you volunteer so that I can take your money. I personally have found that because I volunteer, I feel like I want to spend and give some of my treasure, not because I was suckered into it, because I begin to see the need, the opportunity for me to make a contribution. So when you get your staff to turn that volunteering into treasure, as John said, it's not really a bait and switch. It's just a natural progression in a philanthropic process, I would say. Do you agree, John?
Yeah, I would agree with that, because when we have people come to volunteer, we're not looking for money. We're not looking for them to give us donations or anything. We're really looking for them to help us, achieve or complete a project. And and sometimes that organization might pay for the materials too, because we'll inquire in that way. But we are not actively trying to convert people into donors at a volunteer organization or at a volunteer event, because that I do think that would be bait and switch. But what we do use that entry point, we use that as a way to start cultivating those individuals and even stewarding them, their volunteer activities. Because when they see the care that our staff exhibits with our clients, when they see our clients and maybe some of the activities they're doing, or they see how the activities are impacting our clients, it gets their heart. And once if you can get their heart and show them their impact and keep cultivating them and talking to them, whether it's follow-up emails or, hey, we're doing this, we'd love you to come, or whatever, then they are more apt to share those other two, those other two T's. And that's kind of how we are looking at it. Because that's disingenuous to say, hey, we're having this volunteer thing, and oh, by the way, will you give us money, or will you give us a donation, or even if you don't say it that raw, I think that's disingenuous, and that's not our mode of operation. It's really, we have a need, you can help us, that would be great.
Agreed 100%. And I want to sprinkle some more data here, and then I'm going to go back to Mark. And this is from the 2017 Deloitte's Volunteerism survey. Look at that. It's very clear here what they're saying, which is we're missing a great opportunity when it comes to reaping the benefits of volunteering in the workplace. And we oftentimes hear people saying, millennials, they want to come here and get a beanbag, and they want to just, get a salary increase and get a promotion. How wrong are we getting this? And then we don't spend enough time with strategies like volunteering that can help us engage those employees. And this is a very recent study, and it's quite compelling. Just the last one, 89% believe that companies who sponsor volunteer activities offer a better overall working environment than those who do not. But I want to flip it around from the benefit to employers in volunteering and go to Mark. And Mark, volunteering, great. So employers get their employees to volunteer. Everybody wins. That's wonderful in terms of engagement, helping your employer brand and all that. But there is a book which you and I have talked about, and I'm sure that Linda and John know, which is called Toxic Charity. So how can an employer make certain that they're not just doing this for the purpose of volunteering and engagement without truly having impact? How would you suggest employers to look at effectively having impact in the community, not just going through the motions to have their employees volunteer? How do they do that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Robert. And let me back into the answer by giving you just 3 points that tie the things all three of you have just said together. We're ostensibly talking about millennials here. That's kind of the focus. And I want to be sure that everyone's clear that millennials are clear and the data about them is clear, that millennials are now the largest part of the workforce. So they outnumber baby boomers in the workforce. They are no longer the young people in the workforce. They are the predominant group in the workforce. And here are two things about them to think about. Number one, they move to a place they want to live, and then they get a job. They typically do not cannot be just recruited out of someplace to somewhere else only for money and benefits. So they tend to choose a community in which they see engagement and good things happening, and they want to be in environments where that happens. The second point I would make is, in the old days, volunteering was we'd get some people to come over and paint a fence. Well, John is really thoughtful about creating experiences for his volunteers. And on Linda's side, she's really clear about trying to identify how she can bring her volunteer employees together to go accomplish something rather than just do something in an afternoon. So I think if we all think about it this way, this backs into your question about toxic charity. It's toxic if what we're doing is transactionally volunteering and making a contribution when we have to. It becomes engagement when we say we can really make a difference, or our employees can really make a difference when they come together, go somewhere, and then using the human capital, they accomplish something that is impactful, and they add to that then some treasure, which is money, And the two of those together then outstrip what just money or just volunteerism would do together. And what we see from millennials constantly, especially the younger philanthropists in town, is they're constantly looking for ways they can bring their intellect. So they're thinking, how can I be a volunteer leader around institutional boards and bring money to the table to get this to happen? So we're at a unique place in history where some of what we did before was toxic by the nature of the way we did it. We kept people busy and we tried to get them to give some money. Now you've got a whole generation of people that are saying, we don't want to do this transactionally. We want to get involved and figure out a way to make a difference in the community. And if that involves my time and my hard labor and my money, that's okay, but it's got to be worthwhile and it's got to make a difference. So the final part of your question, how do you figure that out? Many companies now are doing full-scale investigations. I mean, they're trying to figure out, does it really matter what's being asked to be done? And so you don't have much of the volunteer transaction going on anymore where people just go, well, bring some people out and we'll find a house for you to paint. Instead, now people are saying, we're going to put you through a series of experiences where your employees are going to learn something. They're going to meet some people, as in John's case, that they might not typically interact with. And the outcome is they'll become engaged in that particular activity. Here in Central Florida, of course, you can use nonprofit search on the Central Florida Foundation's website to identify all the information about all the nonprofits that are here, and you can pick one that's doing the kinds of things you like. John and nonprofits like his are now beginning to become active recruiters in trying to identify who are the people in the community who want to make a difference and how do we get them engaged. And then Linda, from her point of view, is I wouldn't say she's pushing her employees, but she's sculpting learning opportunities for her employees so they get access to things they might not have had access to before, thus engaging them in things they didn't know existed.
And you mentioned Linda, and Linda, I wanted to ask you along those lines. I mean, I think you guys have a wonderful model. How do you think organizations can replicate, and I'm not going to say the magic again, not another pun, although I just did, but also along the way, what have you learned in terms of not just how to do it, but also how not to do it?
Yeah, I think what you have to do is be earnest, transparent, and genuine. Because everything in life, people will see through when you're just trying to, appear to be something. So in the case of us, I mean, it's part of our business model, but there is an entire strategy around what we want to accomplish philanthropically, from a cause marketing standpoint, from a brand reputation standpoint, but it's earnestly truthful. So, you just don't become involved in something because I'm going to say this, sometimes we'll do things in community, not us, but many, where it's a business transaction or a quid pro quo, where you feel that you need to help someone that's helped you in the past. Although that happens and we understand it, it's got to be about meeting your strategic goals and accomplishing what's best for the community. It is at the root of what makes community best when collaboratively or collectively you look at what you want to achieve and then do it from a good spot, a good place.
So I think part of what you're saying then is, and I think this is good information for employers, which to me means that, volunteering and giving and all those wonderful things that you can do for your employees to drive employee engagement, which in turn creates that discretionary effort, which in turn benefits your organization. It really doesn't happen if you're not genuine, which really begins then taking a step back and look at our organizational values, not just the ones that are written on the wall or in cute little posters, or the ones that we mentioned, at company events, but the values that leadership lives every day. So I guess what I'm getting from you is that this set of values that really create the culture, it's got to come from the top down. If not, people will see right through it, and it's just not going to happen the same way. Am I reading that right?
Yes, and I would just add to that, that once you realize, and Mark does an extraordinary job of this, of just talking about collective impact, that it does take a lot of resources, understanding, and ideas to accomplish things, that carries through in everything you do in your business. You just don't have silos of initiatives going on. We're not just the office down the hall that does social responsibility or foundation work. It's integrated into every part of our business, and it's just as important as it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to sprinkle another piece of data here. These are some volunteering giving samples that I gather from Forbes, Salesforce. They allow employees to take as much as 56 total paid hours for volunteering per year, $1,000 grants to employees who complete 7 days to donate to nonprofits. CSAA Insurance travel to multiple national parks to help the rangers 10 times a year. And then TD Ameritrade has a match program to match dollar for dollar employee donations. And I did put a picture here from United Way. I serve with Linda on the board of Harbor Florida United Way, and Live United is one of my favorite slogans ever. And what it says in there, lend your muscle, contribute knowledge. We all have something to offer. Everybody wins when we all pitch in to advance the common good. It's the essence of volunteering. So I just wanted to sprinkle that in there, but I wanted to go back to John and I wanted to ask you this. We're talking about being strategic in volunteering so that it can benefit the organization, but also that it can benefit the community. You are the receiver or in the receiving end of volunteers many times over. If you were to grade, and I don't mean this in a negative fashion to anybody who's volunteering for you, would you say that most organizations that volunteer for your organization, do you find them to be strategically deliberate in what they're doing, or do you think they have, is the glass half full? Is there room for opportunity in terms of being a little bit more deliberate in what they're doing so that they can be less transactional and more strategic? What's your experience with that?
So I would tell you that it's a mixed bag. And it's kind of interesting because the very large organizations that support us, they are doing it with a strategic goal in mind. They're trying to build team and build community, and they're also trying to fold that into their recruiting and retention so they can talk about it. We have a number of major corporate partners that will do large scale projects for us, and then they want to have us talk about how great that was, and then they'll run that on their internal networks, their internal video networks or their internal computer networks, to highlight, us saying thank you or us talking about the impact or whatever. So very large organizations do that, and very small organizations are very deliberate, and they're not promoting themselves internally. They're using it to address their employees' needs. So, in a lot of cases, that might be millennials that are driving it, and they're using it as and I don't even know if they know that they're doing this overtly, but they're using it as a retention tool, because they're trying to address. And the way I look through, my filter is always guest service, because I'm a former Disney person. I worked there in high school. I worked there as a professional. Okay. So I've got 10 years of Disney experience. So those smaller organizations are using it as customer service for their staff, the way I think about things, giving them opportunities to make an impact and to do something together. The companies or the organizations that I don't think always hit the mark the way I would be striving are kind of those mid-level companies that are maybe doing it to address a need. Well, we got to do something, or, we've got these millennials that are complaining they want to do something, so we came out here, and it's just their approach. Their approach is there something we can do? Can we, kind of what Mark's saying, do you have a house that we can go pull weeds, or that we can do this or that and the other, or the other ones are looking for experiences. They're like, we want to do an art project for this house or what have you. And so I would tell you that it's a mixed bag. Large companies that are fighting for talent are doing it. Small companies that are looking to retain talent are trying to be strategic. And it seems to be, and this is certainly anecdotal, but just seems to be my experience, they're not as deliberate in why they're doing their volunteer efforts.
Okay. And Linda, you, again, I want to go back to you because your organization provides volunteers. What are some of you would argue, the observable behaviors or changes in staff that you can see from them when they volunteer? Is this something you can actually notice on them, or is just we sort of assume it happens, but we're not sure?
Well, we also allow our employees to volunteer on anything that we offer them or what they'd like to do on their own in community. If they're involved with organizations that we're not partnering with, we still not only pay them their salary to do that, but we include that in our volunteerism. So it's not just what we ask them to do. They also are able to volunteer and get paid for that. I think what I see mostly after either they've sat on a board or they've been part of a project or they've helped an organization and a committee in the finance, legal, marketing, they come back with a sense of satisfaction that they've made a difference and they feel proud of that. There's a pride, and they do attribute that to the fact that the Orlando Magic not only introduced them to the opportunity, paid them to do it, but also supported them in whatever needs they had to accomplish that goal. So there is a huge, satisfaction all around from our employees when they have those opportunities.
So I guess, we want to do this because it's good for business, but it's also, the right thing to do. I can't think personally a reason why we shouldn't do this if we're able to, as a business owner myself.
But it is who you are, right? It's got to be who you are and how you do business. It's got to be in part of the culture and innate to how you determine, your connection to the community.
Yeah, and we're about to wrap up, so if anybody has any questions, I had one comment which just somebody said, great idea with a curiosity code, but I was hoping more of a question on the volunteering and topic side. But I'm glad somebody got something really positive out of this, which I'm sure they'll use in their organization. I've been involved with the three of you, quite frankly, in this side of the community for a number of years now. And I would argue as an owner, if you're an executive listening in today, not only is this going to be good for your organization in terms of driving engagement, in terms of enhancing your employer brand, which is huge for talent acquisition, and it's huge for retaining top talent. But also, I can attest that because personally of my involvement in the community, I may be wrong, but I think I've become a better person. So I would argue that as an executive or as an owner, if you're involved and invested in taking this for your organization and getting your organization involved in community, it's also good medicine for you. So I just wanted to sprinkle that additional reason, if you're a leader, of why you ought to do this. It's really good medicine. So I encourage you to do that. I want to respect time, so we're about to wrap it up. But before we do, I want to share a little bit of information on how you can connect with Quest, the Orlando Magic Youth Foundation, and the Central Florida Foundation. So you can go to questinc.org, not quest.org or quest.com. And I made that mistake before. That's why I'm clarifying it. So it's questinc.org.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. I remind myself each and every time. And then nba.com/magic/OMYF for the Orlando Magic Youth Foundation and Central Florida Foundation at cffound.org. I want to thank the panelists for being here. And before we wrap up, I want to just let you know of our upcoming events. And our next webinar is actually in partnership with Grow FL or Grow Florida, which is a statewide organization for second stage businesses. And it's going to be on November 3rd. And it's called What Do Employees Think of Their Managers? We have some nice data. We're going to discuss the top 10 traits, myself and Jill Seeley, who is our VP of Talent Management Services. So as you know, take your cameras out, point it at the QR code. Since one of the attendants loved the concept, show him why it's a good idea, and just point at it, and you're going to be able to get information on this event. While you guys do that, I want to thank again Linda, John, Mark. It's a pleasure to have you here today, and an even greater pleasure to have you in the community and to serve with you in the community. So thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being here, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.